Okay, so we want to talk about all the rest of the NBA players, or most of them anyway, that have been participating in the Olympics and talk about whether their level of play has been hot or not. We definitely have some thoughts on this. So we're going to start with Team USA. And Will, I'm going to ask you about LeBron James. Has he been hot or not?
LeBron's been very hot. He's
That's going on Instagram.
Hey, I mean, I know as Nuggets fans who are listening to this may not be the biggest LeBron fans. We talked about him on last episode about how he might play in FIBA ball. What's adding to like his level of production with Team USA? Is it the FIBA environment? Is it the role? Is it the roster? Is it whatever? I think, yeah, he's just doing really good. He's very cerebral, which works with playing around a bunch of other really smart players. Pretty physical, like that one drive to the basket against South Sudan. And I like seeing him play with this type of talent just because we get to see how well he fits basically with everyone. He's a Swiss Army knife, and his athleticism's gone down, but his IQ has always been there, so it's able to carry him. You know, they don't have necessarily a ton of pure point guards on this Team USA besides like Halliburton and stuff, but he hasn't been playing. So LeBron's
Right.
kind of in that main role, which I like for his game and playing with Team USA because he gets
Yeah,
to
he
show
gets to
some of
play
that off.
point forward.
But you had another good point about why you thought he was doing really good.
Oh gosh, LeBron's doing well in FIBA because this is a standalone tournament. This isn't an 82 game season, and the games are 40 minutes instead of 48 minutes. So he doesn't have to play as much. And so his old man body that, is better than like either of ours, frankly.
Yeah.
Uh, best conditioned athlete on the planet, probably, can sustain being able to do all of the things. Like we talked about how on this team, LeBron has to be the, point guard and the hub of the offense, in addition to the Aaron Gordon, the garbage man, the cleanup guy who has to grab rebounds because Embiid. Actually, we didn't talk about this, but in game two versus they're playing South Sudan right now, and actually that game just finished, and the U.S. did win, by the way. While we were recording, Anthony Davis started at center, and LeBron and AD start next to each other. I think that the reason that AD is able to be so effective, and he's a really good rebounder in his own right, even at the center position, but having LeBron there next to him on that front line helps out a lot, particularly on the glass. And rebounding and boxing out and like defense are really where
Hmm.
I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So the fact that the game is shorter and that the tournament is shorter and you have more time in between games, like they have 2 rest days after each game right now, at least in group play. That's a big deal. And again, not an 82 game season, I think allows LeBron to, we always talk about how on any given night he could turn it on, but he can't really sustain it for something like, a 7 game series. The next round of this is going to be single game elimination also. So he won't have to worry about that, and the games are shorter. It just means that he can actually turn on any given night and maybe every given night in this tournament with this particular format. He's the second oldest guy playing in 5-on-5 basketball in the Olympics this year, actually. And that's crazy. So I want to know who the oldest one is because LeBron's pretty old,
Yeah, I was
right?
just thinking, who
But
is
that's
that?
something that we noted is how much older the players that are going to be playing in FIBA for all the international teams are going to be than you would see on, say, an NBA roster.
Oh, I guess Tarasi, she's 42 years old. Are they
Oh,
counting
she
women?
is? Oh, maybe. Oh, maybe it wasn't just men. I need to go back and check the stat, but it might be that. I didn't realize Tarasi was 42. Damn,
Apparently so.
she's really good. She
Yeah.
doesn't look it. She doesn't move like it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really cool. Okay, the next on this list, and this is an easy one, so I'll give it to you. Kevin Durant, is he hot or not?
Yeah, Kevin Durant is blazing hot. He is molten lava, right? He played, I believe it was 17 minutes versus Team Serbia in that blowout win, coming off the bench. And I believe he was the second leading scorer for Team USA in that game. He had 23 points, I think, before the sort of garbage time half of the fourth quarter started. But yeah, he was just on absolute fire. Serbia absolutely does not have the kinds of wings that you'd need to guard a Kevin Durant, these like big lengthy wings that can at least sort of like bump it a little bit. That dude had a calf strain a couple weeks ago. He doesn't look it right now. He didn't look in that game versus Serbia. That was his first game back in weeks either. He's a guy that moves in a way that defies the laws of physics for 7-footers.
He had 14 points against South Sudan, 2 of 2
Yeah.
from 3, 8 of 9 from the line. So a lot of free throws for him.
Durant coming down the floor at you in transition, that's going to be a layup. He's not there as frequently as, say, like a LeBron, just because of his role. And I don't think he like gets down the floor to like attack off the catch as often as LeBron does. But that's going to be a layup or like a 90% 8-foot jump shot if you try to like play off him. All right, well, I got to ask you, Joel Embiid, the former NBA MVP, who Team USA courted heavily to be on their Olympic team, hot or not?
You have to give him a nod on this. He just got benched. Hopefully it was willingly and not Kerr
That's why you had to give him a nod? Was because he got benched?
Well, it's including the reasoning why he got benched, just because he's not been playing well. Like, he's been turning it over. The things that he does for the Sixers is not what Team USA needs him to be doing for the starting unit for the United States, where he's like a front-facing scorer. He's not a connective passer. He's not, at least on the USA, being like a defensive anchor. I think AD serves better to be like a better defender and like prioritizing that role over what Embiid does. Embiid's whatever can be fine on defense because he's so big and theoretically athletic when he's healthy, so he can like do some things, but he's not like an elite level defensive player all the time, especially in this environment surrounded with so much talent. But it's just he hasn't done anything really to show that he's hot. So
yeah, I actually just double checked because I thought maybe, if this is a blowout versus South Sudan, he'll maybe play at some point in the second half. But yeah, Embiid didn't play a single minute in that game. It's interesting. They clearly didn't need him, right? And we talked about the game versus Team Serbia. This was a 26-point blowout in that instance, but Embiid was actually a -8. He was the only player for Team USA that lost his minutes.
But this is leading to larger discourse of people debating Embiid all time, and he's only a top 5 player in the league and whatever. It's really funny.
I'm going to ask you next about Josh Giddey, who has been the focal point of Team Australia. Hot or not?
I think he's hot. Not actually hot. But from a basketball standpoint, pull up threes, being like creative, I think. And he's big, so it's like sometimes defenders are having a little struggle with him on offense. He's not like a tiny ball handler. So he can do some damage out there. Like, he's not just like a scrub or anything like that.
Nope, Josh Giddey's not a scrub.
He is not a scrub.
I do think that it's interesting you point that out, right? We've talked in the past about the things that OKC might be giving up when they trade Giddey, right? Where, they played him at shooting guard. He's like the second best rebounder in the starting lineup. Maybe a reason that Dagnall wanted to play him as often as he did, in addition to the playmaking. But we talked about how Australia plays pretty small, right? Jock Landale playing at the 5 as he's the starting 5 for Team Australia, I believe. Pretty undersized, or very undersized on the wing and in the front court. And then Patty Mills coming off the bench, like he's going to be undersized even by FIBA standards for a point guard. But Josh Giddey actually gets to weaponize his size against players at that position in FIBA. And I saw like really everyone on Team Canada having some issue with him at different points throughout that game. So it's really interesting to me because there are lots of issues with Giddey's game that, people can criticize when he's playing with OKC, but some of them are things where, some things have to do with like the system and whatever, and the fact that he can't really shoot that well. But some of the concerns, like his level of aggression, particularly, in transition and things like that, like it's not there at all in FIBA. And I'm like, could you at least bring this over to the NBA? Because I think this would alleviate at least some of the things that the concerns that people have about how you play and how you can like fit a team around you. But yeah, with Team Australia, like he is the engine of this. They play with a lot of pace. You talked about how Team Canada wanted to full court press them. I think part of it was to try to slow Australia down some because they play so fast on offense, especially with Giddey on the floor. And it's not just him. He's not like a slow, like methodical, like walking the ball up and trying to like, probe to get a good shot. Like they really do play with pace, and a large part of that is um, him, and he's so decisive with his passes. It's one of the things that I think OKC missed in some of the minutes that he sat in the playoffs versus Dallas. But that's the kind of thing that just like keeps an offense humming even like after it's been initiated too. So I think he's been really good in FIBA, and he's one of the reasons that Australia, I think, has the best chance of coming out of Group 2 between them and Spain. But we'll have to
Mhm.
see the
Yeah.
result of that last game, and then it'll come down to point differential. Maybe they can be a wild card.
All right. Well, then let me ask you, Dennis Schroeder, hot or not?
I think Dennis Schroeder has been pretty hot. I'm not gonna lie. He is the orchestrator of Germany's offense, and I actually think they look quite poor when he's off the floor offensively in particular. He's really good at knifing into the paint, still needs to work on the finishing at the rim, but most of the time he'll be able to spot the overhelp quickly, get the ball where it needs to get to, whether it's the big or spotting up for shooters on the wing. He plays with pace. He's been defending his butt off, although I will say when they played Brazil yesterday, he was going under on a lot of screens, some lazy switches. I think that Germany was having a championship hangover moment after they won the World Cup last year. I'm like, but this is the Olympics. This is not the time. But they managed to pull that off in that game. And Dennis was a big part of why, especially on offense. We saw even in that exhibition game versus Team USA last week that he was a big part of why it was even close. But yeah, I think he's been good, and Germany has as good a chance of any as any team to either take out Team USA or finish in that silver spot this summer. I don't think they would be able to do it without Dennis. So we'll see how they progress throughout the rest of this competition.
All right. I'll ask you again on this next one because you are familiar with FIBA Fournier. How are we feeling on Evan Fournier?
FIBA Fournier, very, very hot. He's been so good in like every facet of the game. He's getting the ball where it needs to go. He's moving a lot off ball. He's hitting shots off of movement. He's hitting shots off the dribble. He's defending really well. He's forcing turnovers at the point of attack. And I'm just like, what is going on here? This is a guy who couldn't get minutes at all on the New York Knicks on a team that was bereft of backup point guard depth before he got traded to the Pistons. And he actually did play some for the Pistons, and they're not a good team. So I can't really tell you too much about like the overall impact there. But he's been great for France, giving some shooting around Wemby and being that like supplementary, as it turns out in FIBA, he's that do-it-all role player guy, and he's kind of like guard Batum right now, just kind of like doing good things at moments when they really need it, whether he's making or missing shots. So FIBA Fournier, he's been really good. We saw in that game that went to overtime between Team France and Team Japan, down the stretch of regulation, it was actually like it looked like Japan was kind of like they're done, and part of that was because Fournier had hit a couple of really big threes. I think one of them was coming off a pin down, and one of them was off the dribble, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, dude, veterans are going to vet in these FIBA competitions. It was crazy. Then obviously Japan took the lead, and then they blew the lead at the very end, went to OT. And of course, if you're going to go to overtime against Team France in Paris, you sold. So that was a problem, but that was a really fun duel actually between Evan Fournier and Yuki Kawamura, who is the only reason that Japan was even in that game in the first place. Like you said, that was a game that you didn't really expect to be close, particularly given the size disadvantage that Japan was at. But those two guards, they really brought it in some critical stretches in that game. All right, our very last hot or not. Will, I wanted to ask you about our very own Victor Wembanyama.
This might be the hardest one because the others were kind of obvious, I think. This one, it's kind of like, what is your standard for Wemby? Still so young. He just hasn't really shown up like a projected best player in the NBA all time has played. So because I'm kind of annoyed with the Wemby hype, I'm going to say not. He could be doing so much more.
Clickbait.
He could be doing so much more. He scored, I think, 10 points in the first half versus Japan or something like that, and then he didn't score for almost the entire second half. He did have a great overtime. He made some threes, made some blocks. It was amazing. But he blocked Yuki Kawamura. He goes up to Wemby's kneecap. So yeah, I'm not super impressed by that block. I don't know. I'm just trying to make a case for saying not for Wemby because I just want to see more from him. Right now, I'm just like, whatever. And I think France, not super high on them from what I've been seeing.
Yeah, I think that last part is right. Like, I think France is only going to go as far as Wemby can take them. So far, he's been fine. Like, he's really the reason that they're in the class of teams where you didn't expect that Japan game to be close, but it ended up being close. And part of that was because you had a pretty quiet second half, I would say. A lot of people pointed out that France is really weak in their guard play compared to most other teams in the tournament. And I do think that matters for bigs. But, you just want to see a little bit more of his impact on that end of the floor. Defensively, no questions about it, right? He's getting the blocks. He's getting the deflections. He's getting guys to steer out of the paint when you think they otherwise have an open lane. He's getting back in transition to get crazy transition blocks, all of the things that you want to see from a guy who you expect to win, 10 defensive players of the year in his lifetime or something, right? He's staying with every wing. I don't think I've seen someone take Wemby from the perimeter, drive in, and then be able to score on him. He's been pretty positionally sound so far in the tournament, so that's nice to see. But yeah, otherwise, there hasn't been anything with him that has sort of impressed me. He's so much better at this thing that he kind of struggled with in the regular season, or he's got this new skill that he's working with. I think we still see some of the same issues, when he tries to post up or something, he doesn't have the strongest base, and so you can kind of disrupt those kinds of shots a little bit. I will say, just to put a really big positive of how he's been playing is, like I said, you see all of the energy, particularly on the defensive end. He has been something of an Iron Man this last season, because you saw him in his rookie year. He played 71 games out of 82, and he was playing 29 minutes per game, even with all of the load management that the Spurs were doing. He was able to absolutely destroy the rookie wall, right? He zoomed past Chet in that rookie of the year race, and he was doing crazy stuff down the stretch of the season on both ends of the floor. And now he's playing in the Olympics for his national team. It's a really intense process. I believe France had at least 4 or 5 exhibition games, in addition to a couple of the ones that weren't broadcast. And now, obviously, group play has begun, and France is a team that, theoretically could medal at this competition. And so that's just a lot of basketball to be played, a lot of minutes adding up, and he hasn't really had a real break, but you don't really see it on him. He's not doubling over, hands on knees. There's no defensive possession where I see him taking that possession off, whether he's a roamer or he's on ball, right? He's always trying. And I think that is something that we have to commend him on, because it's especially difficult for bigs, and young bigs in particular, to manage that energy expenditure, because your body uses up more energy than other people's bodies. There's more pressure on your joints just constantly, and you would otherwise get tired faster. And yet he's somehow been able to figure out a regiment that works so that he's never, totally gassed and all of that. So that's really cool to see. I hope he doesn't burn out as the tournament goes on. I don't see any reason that he would, because like we said, it's not like he's doing a bunch of crazy stuff where you're oh wow, he's expending a lot of energy right now, constantly doing his job, especially defensively. And maybe we want to see a little bit more from him on offense. We know that he's capable of these highlight plays and all of that, so nothing worrying. I wouldn't say not. I would say Haught, because I think that he is carrying a team that is otherwise not really of the same caliber of other teams that I would expect to medal, but I think France has a chance just because of him.
I mean, I wouldn't say that he's not hot. I have one choice, hot or not. So
yes, but please remember to subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all the things on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. If you're listening there, you probably already know that. We're also on TikTok. What's in a game NBA, with periods in between each word. I haven't posted anything there yet, but I'm working on it. Okay. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks.